All right, it's my honor to invite up another friend to the stage, Maria Vovchok, journalist, MC, ambassador at Blockchain Association of Ukraine. Maria will be the moderator of a wonderful panel, Metaverse Architecture, how to learn, communicate, and build a business. So, big round of applause, please. And the stage is yours.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Probably 1, 2, 3. Yeah, my microphone works. So hello, and welcome everyone. This is a final panel at our main stage today at MetaWeek. Thank you so much, Gordon. As he mentioned earlier, I'm Maria Vovchok. I'm ambassador at Blockchain Association of Ukraine, MC and organizer of blockchain conferences as well here in Dubai. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm also really excited to invite on stage our panelists. So please welcome Levitt, CFA, Head of Strategy for Theta Labs, where he works on corporate strategy, marketing, and press relations and analytics. Prior to joining Theta Labs, Wes spent 8 years in investment roles in real estate equity and securitized debt. Please give him a big hand. Be louder, please. Thank you. Also, please welcome on the stage Frank Fitzgerald, founder at Pax.world. Frank has been leading the charge in tech as the CTO and consultant for over 20 years, winning multiple innovation and startup awards. The last 5 years, he's been working on the Metaverse platform Pax.world, built for grown-ups to use for business, entertainment, and shopping. Please give him a big hand once again. Also, welcome on the stage, lady in blockchain, Megha Shrestha, co-founder and CEO at Metabloqs. She's a digital innovation specialist with many years of experience in developing networking solutions and experiences through technology and education, from pioneering educational systems in Asia to networking algorithms for European C-suites. She's currently leading Metabloqs, which democratizes the way we collaborate, learn, play, and the way we network. Give her a big hand. Also, last but not least, please welcome on stage Joel Dietz, co-founder and CEO of Metametaverse, a serial entrepreneur who has been at the forefront of several future tech trends, including blockchain, tokenization, AR, VR, and AR art. He was a founding member of Ethereum, started an internal Ethereum project which became the popular MetaMask wallet, was the most cited author on Google Scholar on crypto economics, put together some of the largest deals in the asset tokenization space, and is the author of the monograph Principles of Holonic System Design. Give him a big hand. Welcome him on stage. Thank you, Joel, for joining us. As it was mentioned earlier, right now we're going to discuss Metaverse architecture, how to learn, communicate, and build a business. So, as we have here our representatives and founders of Metaverse, really exciting projects, let's start from how to build a Metaverse, because everybody, if you're just a regular user, to me, as a journalist, frankly, it's really interesting how do you do this from the inside. So whenever you can, everything what is public, please share with each of you, and whenever you can, in much more details. Who would like to start? Wes.
Sure. So at Theta, we're a layer 1 blockchain, primarily focused on media and entertainment. We build a lot of decentralized products for video streaming, video transcoding and encoding, and data compute over decentralized networks. We also expanded into NFTs on our layer 1 and have a NFT platform where we worked with American Idol currently is doing jobs across it. So while we don't build metaverses directly, we like to think ourselves as building products that can be useful in the metaverse. Mm-hmm. So while we are going to try to compete in the very competitive metaverse space ourselves right now, but we are trying to build the picks and shovels type businesses that can be successful. So I'm very curious to hear the answers from those actually building in it, because that's good customer feedback for us as to what other useful things can we build that will be sort of the good plumbing underneath the metaverses you're creating.
Mm-hmm. Frank.
Yeah, for us, I mean, obviously, How do you build a metaverse? Well, you fail a lot to begin with.
How many times?
And you learn it. Well, I mean, it's just in different interactions. This is a whole new paradigm that hasn't been done before. And if you think you're going to succeed immediately, you're wrong. Whether or not that is you're a business coming into a metaverse and understanding how you're going to commercialize on it or leverage your system, to the underlying technology build. Because on the technology side, it literally touches almost every piece of technology you can imagine, from video-based back-end technology to 3D architectural design to the way that you're doing real-time messaging systems and laying out Web3-based NFT platforms. It's every single type of programmer in the world that you need in order to develop this stuff. And it's probably one of the most complex and interesting projects that I've ever worked on. And I've worked on some major trading engines and in classical finance and everything. And it's absolutely fascinating. And it's finding that skill set in developers that can go across multiple functionalities, which is extremely important in sort of building these areas.
That's true, but I would like you, in this case, probably as well, dwell upon more on the design and architecture, because definitely the underlying technology is top one priority. Sure. But at the same time, if we're talking about the users who don't really care what is going on just behind the hood, they really want to see that it looks fine. You can use it really easy. The avatars, if these are avatars, they look fine. They look like the same. Because, I had a chance to compare like a couple of metaverses inside. And I could see that some of them are still really, really far from offering something that would be appealing to anybody who's using this, especially if you're like attracting new users. So can you please dwell upon on this aspect as well?
Well, definitely on the architectural side, like if you're talking like 3D modeling architecture and all that. So we have something that's very unique with what we're doing. We have 4 major architects in the real world that build museums and buildings and all sorts of things. And my marketing guys don't say the names yet. We're releasing that into large newspapers in a couple of weeks. What's been really interesting is trying to bring that classical architecture and bringing them into the metaverse, and how excited they are about it is amazing.
Is it true that in this case they obviously can do something more which looks real, because in that case they cannot, for example, perform it in the physical world, but they can create it in metaverse?
Yeah, and building architecture in the metaverse is very different than the real world, because you need wider doors, you don't need bathrooms, you don't need all these other things that are really interesting. But
maybe to make it more real, you still need all of those things.
That's the question, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, by the way, I'm willing for you to comment on this whenever anybody.
Sure.
Yeah, Megha.
Maybe a bit of my experience, because our metaverse actually is building, trying to build real cities. And that brings in excitement, but as well as challenges, because you really need to map out their cities in real time. And we need to bring in a lot of architects in picture. So we could not do it with just 3D artists. They are amazing when you want to do it, with a certain asset. But when it comes to big projects, big architectural projects, cities, I think the quality really comes in from involving experts like architects who are really building those houses. But the challenge again is in terms of, bringing the architects, but they don't use the softwares that are actually, being used in engines like Unity. They are not aware of that.
They create 10 billion polys that never run on anything, because they're just doing those renders for people and not actually making it work from a 3D perspective.
Yeah. So actually to balance, because the clients or the customers or the normal users like us would like to see high quality graphics because we are used to it, right? But then when it comes to getting them into the engine and really for your machines to support it, you need to make something that we call low poly, or really light version of it. So that's the challenge I think we are looking into. But definitely, I think we are moving on to really experimenting on it and trying to find a solution together.
So how are the experiments? I'm really curious about that. So how many attempts did you have which were unsuccessful and successful later on?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Frank that, when we want to go really, really, super realistic, the failures are a lot in terms of not just, not being able to convert it into an engine that works, but also for being able to be accessible by a large mass audience. And that's where we fail, because we need to take into consideration that the designers might have, super qualified or high quality graphic systems and laptops, but maybe the users don't. So we need to really look into it as well.
So by the way, Megha, as you mentioned earlier, I haven't explored Metabloqs, but I've seen your videos, how you've been showing this in Davos earlier on, and I actually kind of felt as if I'm a user. So this is preliminary video for everyone just to get acquainted with Metabloqs. So it really looks from a lot of perspectives so more realistic when I won't be comparing to which ones, but some other metaverses. But the thing is, when you're actually helping to build this kind of place, community, by the way, can you call a metaverse a place if you're building, for example, Paris? So can you call it a city? So how do you call this in this case?
Well, we call it Meta City.
Meta City,
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you're building, how many things have you need to think through so to make it really realistic? Maybe you can name some of them. The one that you're discussing with your architects and everything. Yeah, Frank, you can also comment.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting is when you're designing a world, you have to think about, just like you do in real cities, how are people passing by each other? How do you create those interactions? How do you create those experiences that people are going to remember and think are great? As you're doing from a design perspective, and you're looking at how high quality you want to go, you have to do three things. You have to figure out what is your overall reach that you want to get. So what's your lowest end device that you want to run this on? Do you want to do it on server-side rendering or client-side rendering, and what the overall cost for that is? Because server-side rendering today is about 75 cents to $1 per user per hour.
How much, once again?
75 cents. So if you have 50,000 people consistently in your environment for 24 hours, it's almost $1 million for one day.
One day, okay.
So when you see these photorealistic 3D rendering stuff that's using server-side stuff, you have to factor that in for a cost. So it might be good for a couple-hour event that's a really high level, but maybe not for persistence, right? And that will change over time as client-side rendering gets better. But these are the things that a lot of people don't understand in the marketplace when they're coming into the metaverse, and you have to explain this as to what are the different offerings, what are the costs, and why.
Yeah, by the way, it's very interesting. Joel, I would like to jump to you because if I'm not mistaken, you're actually building the metaverse where you can build the metaverse. Or correct me if I'm wrong, how in this case, what is your approach in this?
Yeah, we have a one-click builder for a metaverse that provisions your own metaverse that then you can either upload content into or have procedurally generated art content kind of pre-populated in. It's currently in closed beta, but we definitely deal with a lot of these same issues. And what we've emphasized in general is kind of like the gaming or interactive element of things that you couldn't do in the real world. So, photorealism is interesting, but in some ways it's more interesting to kind of have things that you couldn't do in real life.
Like what?
And as an example, one of the things that we have live that looks really cool is, well, first of all, we have a little bit of a space age vibe, so you're floating in space, and there's kind of an ambient kind of, music and things like that.
As if you're NASA astronaut.
So you're kind of exploring these different metaverses that exist, and one of them is called the Crystalverse. And in the Crystalverse, not only is it like a section of crystal caves and glowing and things like that emit music and all these other things, you actually have the ability to 3D scan your crystals, upload them, and then have them on display. And for someone who is running any kind of crystal-related retail shop or anything of this variety, including crystal mines, and we have people all interested in this, it's a better virtual exhibition space for your goods than just leaving them in your store or putting them on a website where you get an image. So because, crystals especially probably are something that depends on the, appreciation of the various aspects of its unique look, which is a 3D object to start off with. So, and to further augment that, which is the kind of where it starts to get really exciting, is, if you're looking for a space to run a concert or a venue or something like this, and we have already sort of worked out these kind of rental arrangements and things like that,
okay,
what better place to like drop your EP or something than in this giant 3D exhibition space with all these sort of glowing crystals around you.
So when you said actually about, for example, concerts, did you have already some of on your platform?
We have had simulcast concerts that were basically simulcast in a venue like this one and in the metaverse at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So, by the way, so this question, why I ask you, because if we analyze for almost everyone, user experience, we may say, is first and foremost, is the most important thing. So you think about crypto payments as the next step. Am I right or wrong whenever you're attracting new customers?
I don't think of it necessarily as the next step because whether or not you have intrinsic payment flow inside of the metaverse may be a question of the particular business needs. So like as a crystal retailer, for example, of high-end crystals, I may settle in a different mechanism, through PayPal or Stripe or kind of standard things, and so I'm selling a physical object anyways.
So you still need to use centralized applications?
You don't need to. It's really at the discretion of the individual business, and certainly it's easy for us to support, any sort of decentralized payment processor, through cryptocurrencies. But at the end of the day, for some of these businesses, we're dealing with physical objects that will be shipped out, and the physical object will arrive somewhere, and it's a business process like anything else, so we facilitate it as a business process.
Yeah, when you're building the metaverse, especially for specific clients, right? Yes. You have to have a platform that's flexible enough to accommodate all different types of people that are building out the metaverse. So whether that is running credit card processing for classical style, whether that's crypto-based systems where we can actually even use DAO mechanisms or ways that people can actually modify and change the world. It's really important to have that piece in there because I think people are fascinated by it and they want to actually pull that in. So I think being flexible enough to accommodate all sorts of different methods is extremely important at this point in time and not just get locked into one.
I totally support that. Creating this gateway for people actually to explore, you definitely need to deal with centralized payment solutions, for example. But also when you're actually entering the metaverse, how is important the interoperability between different networks? Because I'm sure you're building on very different protocols. So I'm really curious, how do you work on interoperability? And I know that some of, for example, some of the metaverse creators of metaverse avatars, they are trying to make them multi-chain. But how does it work in practice? And does it work, or do you face a lot of issues with that?
Yeah, it's a very tricky issue because there's a natural conflict between interoperability being a good thing for users and being difficult for the creators of each metaverse who wants value capture. So a good example is across NFT in games. It's good for users to be able to take an in-game item and be able to take it to any other game and use it. It's naturally in conflict with the creator of a game that wants to keep you locked in your platform. Same concept with a lot of metaverses. So curious, those who are building metaverses yourself, how you deal with the issue, because we try to stand as sort of a neutral third party and we don't care who we're supplying and working with, but we don't have our own metaverse with a staked interest in keeping users on the platform. How much are you trying to gate users versus how much you're letting the value they have on your metaverse transfer to others?
I don't think it's so much gating. I look at it this way. How much does Dubai compete with Paris?
With Paris?
Yeah, as a city.
You know what? In this case, when you actually raised it, it's very interesting. How do you not only compare them. Like you can compare them in very different aspects there.
Exactly, right? You go to different cities for different things, and they have different looks and feels, right? But interoperability needs to start first with the transportation systems, right? How do we create the portals that basically connect that? And I think that's a pretty easy thing that we can solve very early on. You know, I'm very open to having a lot of different metaverses be in my metaverse that we can link off to it. And that's the way I look at it, as we're sort of a place to find other metaverses, right? And I think what's harder in that is actually teaching the users that this is a portal. Right? So do we standardize the way a portal looks, you know, what the information associated with that portal so that we can tell them where they're going and how, and do we standardize that across the different metaverses, right, and set that up? The one that you brought up with the avatar is a much more difficult problem because of the different levels of rendering, where you have the blocky architecture of Minecraft or Sandbox, and then you all of a sudden want to go into a photorealistic system. Those avatars are not going to work between the systems, and maybe you will lay out some rendering, but every single metaverse will basically have to create their own individual. I think where interoperability comes in easier on the avatar side is more through imagery and skinning that we could do some things with, but it's a much more complex problem.
Yeah, by the way, I totally support that. And the thing is, this is one of the issues that I heard that like the founders are really trying to find the solution. So Megha and Joel, please also share your experience, how you're dealing with that.
Yeah, sure. So I totally agree with Frank that, you know, me as also as Metabloqs, we really don't see other metaverses because the market is huge, and every metaverse, if you see, are trying to do something different in their own perspective. Some are specializing in education, so it's really as, you know, how the Web3 was, Web 2 was, and everybody was trying to figure out their ways. We are also trying to figure out our place in the market, and then eventually the future, what we see is every metaverses will have their own market, just like you said, different cities, different purposes. So it would be different. And the challenge would definitely be coming with if users would like to have their assets being used in different metaverses, being that we have different technical stacks, we have different graphics, and then the expectation of the user maybe of the usability of those assets in the metaverse as well. So to make it operatable from one metaverse to another would be difficult, just like the avatars, or if you have a house or something. But we are really open in terms of how can we do it, because eventually we will be guided. The easier the mass adoption would come with the ease of when people feel that it's easy.
That's true.
Yeah.
By the way, yeah, as it was mentioned earlier, like today, mass adoption, and everybody talks about this. I'm really curious, Joel, you wanted to add first of all?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm a part of two working groups on interoperability. One is the Metaverse Founders Club, which I started, and is specifically interested in gaming in metaverses, and particularly opening portals where you go into one metaverse and opens up a portal in a different metaverse, and including developing a kind of a metaverse native web browser. And so that's the focus of that group. We're about the founders of 10 different metaverses, including the founders of some major rendering engines like Godot.
Does it have something to do with Gal Gadot? Does it have anything to do with Gal Gadot? The name?
No, not really. It's one of the top like kind of web native rendering engines out there. And the other one is the Open Metaverse Alliance, which is me, the founders of Space, Upland, Sandbox, Animoca, Alien Worlds, and Yuga Labs. So it's only those companies, basically, right? Oh, and SuperWorld.
SuperWorld.
Yeah.
Oh.
So there's a kind of basically we're the, I guess, founding members of this particular thing. And that one is a little more focused on principles of the metaverse. So, you know, including the interoperability is obviously one of them, but kind of rewarding creators, you know, some of the other kind of core things.
Yeah, please dwell upon the principles. I would love to know what core principles do you have?
I would actually we're finalizing them on Thursday, actually.
Thursday,
so I think there will probably be a press release that comes out maybe as soon as next week about exactly which ones we finalized.
Where can I find it?
I think it will be probably trending on Twitter, but yeah, the Open Metaverse Alliance, OMA3 is the name of the group.
I will definitely check it out.
So we do
Moreover, I
have-
know a couple of founders there.
Yeah, so and it's a group of people who built significant metaverse businesses so far, and generally share this idea of wanting to have an open and interoperable metaverse. But back to what Frank said, I mean, there are core issues at two levels, basically. One level is the chain that things are issued on, cross-chain compatibility, and if you support too many chains, you get, risk of this sort of cross-chain hacking and all that kind of stuff. So that's one danger. The other thing is just, even right now, we support about 5 different file formats for uploading 3D assets into metaverses. GLB, GLTF, FBX, OBJ, et cetera. And the more you support as well, it becomes a challenge, to do data portability. Of all the things out there right now, I have to say I'm probably most supportive of NVIDIA's effort around the kind of USD format. And we are hoping to do that because there is some, we're Unreal Engine 5 based, so we kind of are at the highest end of kind of, data, visual quality that as far as a gaming experience and everything else. But I do hope that we can have some, industry standards broadly.
Actually, you raised a very good point, because this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. When we are talking, and everybody probably have heard about what happened as very famous example with Axie Infinity, but when we're talking about vulnerability of the platform, and I'll tell you, and of course, mostly they're happening actually if you analyze on those bridges. So how can we tackle this issue, or how, for example, your cybersecurity teams are trying to tackle these potential issues? Can you share with us?
I hate bridging. No, I think it's a huge problem in the industry right now, right? And especially when you're getting more and more complex and you're going across more and more chains, you become your vulnerability just increases, right? I'm not 100% sure that it's solved right now from a technical perspective. I don't think it's sort of like saying, hey, Windows 95 was really secure back in the day, right? It's not so secure right now. It's because everyone found the holes. And right now in the industry, that's what's happening, is people are finding the holes, finding the different traps. Yeah. It will become more mature over time. And I hear new ideas of different ways that people are doing bridging now, and some of them I really like, where it's cold storage and all sorts of different things. But I don't think it's been fully solved yet.
Yeah. Joel, you can definitely talk about this, take into account, as you've been dealing with these issues for a long time, and when you work with Meta and MetaMask. Am I right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in all kinds of security discussions since the very early days of, cryptocurrency, and, which standards to support, and seed phrases versus custodied wallets, and all of those things, which, at various points are, contentious, but problems that have to be resolved in a kind of business framework. And, fundamentally within the infrastructure we don't really have to do bridging, but we can fairly easily support things that are on different chains, because many chains have NFT technology. Within the workload that we have personally, I would say that 95% of developer effort of our 20-person developer team goes to gaming experiences, the other type of software, and less than 5% goes to the kind of blockchain, smart contract design, things like that anyways. So fundamentally, if a chain can support NFTs, and particularly if they can support metadata attached to NFTs or like IPFS links and stuff like that, we can basically support it, including in the kind of browser context. So in that sense, I do think it's a huge issue. I basically agree with everything that Frank said, but hopefully it's one we don't have to tackle.
Yeah, and I think it's more on the exchange side of NFTs that would actually cause more of that issue than just reading of information from an interoperability perspective between different chain systems. And that's fine, because there's no security risk there. It's more just how we actually do the exchange of NFTs or different chains.
Yeah, but the only thing that I wanted in here clarify, if I'm not mistaken, so from the other side, if let's say a bad actor is, let's say, airdropping NFTs, he potentially can can send vulnerability to your wallet if it's not secure enough, or open, if I'm not mistaken, IP address. Is this happening like right now? Joel, this is a question to you actually, because if I'm not mistaken, this is what happened like earlier as well. So
There's basically, given how blockchains work, there is nothing to prevent someone from airdropping you something if they know your public address. That's basically kind of by design. And
yes.
Now you can build filters into the wallet experience that filter out either obvious bad actors or things that you didn't ask for or whatever else, things that no one has heard of. And sometimes it's very obvious, which ones are qualify as that. So I think that's something that the industry, similar to what Frank was saying, is evolving as people use these kind of different vectors. Now I will say, and because I mentioned already this browser design stuff for Metaverse native browsers, the Chromium model and just in general browser stuff and the extension, which is sort of a decision I made early on with MetaMask, is a very secure data model by design. We didn't invent that. It was done by the people who built the browsers in the beginning. But having the extension kind of running separately as effectively a containerized version. And there are other things that the industry in general is doing that is moving even farther in a direction. Like one project that I'm fairly enthusiastic about is Urbit. And the kind of, basically having its own native virtual machine that allows you to do even more with its own native cryptography. So I think at least in some areas, the industry is progressing towards better security models.
Thank you. Right now, I will be ask you again to shift more to our marketing side, because you're here and everybody here is talking about mass adoption. So we want really to attract, let's say, not so very accustomed to crypto customers. What kind of marketing approaches do you use? How are you trying to attract somebody who has never heard of crypto, doesn't know a lot, just heard about Ethereum, Bitcoin, and etc., and they just heard recently about NFTs and Metaverse?
If they have never heard of crypto or barely know it, then almost by definition they don't care about it. So
yes, but they might be curious.
Yeah, the Metaverse or the project you're doing, then it can't appeal to them on a crypto basis like it might to us. It just has to be really good, like an enjoyable game or Metaverse to spend time in. I mean, I've seen the ads for the recent Meta launch, and it's got an avatar that looks like 15 years ago. Like Meta, Second Life was doing better than this. Mm-hmm. And that may be intentional because it's easier to not land in the uncanny valley if you have a cartoonish look, but I don't see anything there that is impressive enough to pull in people without crypto. So I just think that's the key. We got to stop thinking like we're in the crypto space and that's how we're going to win people over technologically. It's got to be because you're building fun, interesting stuff like a portal that takes you to more individualized metaverses where it's appealed to you. Mm-hmm. That might actually be enjoyable to use. Yeah.
Thank you.
For us, it's all about targeting specific groups, right? So we're targeting more professional metaverse. You're going in as yourself. You're not going in as some wizard or dragon or something. And it's meant for old guys with white hair like me. No, not really. It's more targeted towards 25 to 45-year-old people that are looking for more of a professional experience. And what's funny is everyone talks about, oh, you're competing with all these other metaverse projects. In fact, I think I'm competing more with Zoom and Teams and sort of what we're creating. And it's going to be a transition period where people are actually going to be able to go in. And I think it's extremely important to get these users who are crypto-based or non-crypto-based to be able to go in, see all these things, and then see the potential of what they're able to do with the crypto but not blocking them from actually experiencing it to begin with.
Thank you. Megha?
Yeah. So for our take is really to focus on experience and really easy user face, I would say, because, just like you said, maybe the crypto people are used to this, difficult, even setting up a wallet sometimes is really difficult for normal users. So the challenge here is to make a very easy that on a click of a button you will be able to enter into the world, but you also feel excited about that experience and you really want to stay in that environment and experience all of these things. And that comes with, you know, a certain warmth in the setting, and that's what we try to focus on, is to give them like sort of a very good experience in terms of what they see, how they feel inside the metaverse. And that's how we want to retain users, by giving them this experience. And the immersive experience, what we tried out even a couple of things here, and the feedback has been for somebody who has never tried metaverses to someone who has tried multiple metaverses, that they like the experience and they want to be part of it.
Okay, so they're, in this case, if they are spoiled, you can have something to attract their attention as well. Joel, how do you attract attention versus like somebody who's spoiled with trying different metaverses, with somebody who's very new to crypto?
We're going a little retro, I have to say, in some of our experiences, but I love it, like back to the kind of old arcades, you know, kind of style of interacting with stuff, because I grew up as a gamer. I've appreciated many different types of games. Some of our advisors, you know, invented whole categories of games. And one of the really interesting things there as well is that VR technology, actually not Meta's VR technology, but some other partners we work with, has reached full retinal density. So basically, in that, what it means is that the number of pixels that are in the VR display are equal to the number of pixels that you see in your vision, and thus it's completely indistinguishable, basically, from what you would see in normal life. And so we're integrating some of these things into our product as we speak. So I don't know, just the things that are really, like, you couldn't have done this before with any other technology, that are kind of mind-blowing. And I see it as more than technology as well. I kind of see it as like a zeitgeist, like a whole new wave of how we collectively imagine our future as a species on this planet. And are we actually going to make it to Mars or not? Are we actually going to really do anything interesting as like a civilization? And the people, who are really want to do it, and in fact, like Elon Musk has a school in Texas that's all the things, and the first thing they get when, I think I'm allowed to say this, but like when the kids come in, they call the first class the Martians, because they believe that they will be the first people to set foot on Mars. And how exciting is that? Like, to actually go through your school with like, I might be one of the first people to actually be on Mars, and the technology and curriculum, everything I'm learning.
Or you can just go out to our booth, put on the VR headset, and you're on Mars.
Right. Yeah, good. So.
Yeah. So for this, I definitely support that. It helps you like to travel. By the way, when you actually raise the point about gamers, it's very interesting, because I heard like totally different views on this, because I know some VCs who are investing in gaming for many years, and they said like, oh, actually it doesn't mean that all the gamers actually need these decentralized solutions. First of all, said they are okay with centralized. They do not exactly tend to go after different games which are out there already on decentralized platforms, because they're happy with what they have. They go only for the game, not for the play-to-earn model, for example. What would you say to them? To those gamers who are exactly in this case, like, I'm okay with the centralized solution. I'm not so into play-to-earn. I'm more to play to have fun. By the way, it's one of the things that I heard quite often. Frank.
So it all depends on what you're trying to do with your metaverse, right? Of course, we're going to have different ways that people can actually earn inside our environment by just, I love the earn to walk model.
Yes, I heard about that.
And
I heard recently, even pray to earn or breathe to earn.
Okay.
And I forgot what is the third one, which sounded funny.
Yeah, but I think I think there's a combination here of both, right? And you have to be it's sad to say, everything to everyone, right? VR is a perfect example of this. Did a bunch of stuff, started this in VR, realized that only 1% of the population in the United States has a VR headset in their household, and then the other people there only want to be in it for 17 minutes as a maximum, right? And when you're doing these large events and you want to keep these people in there, VR is a difficult thing to do right now. And I think that's why we have to have these experiences on all sorts of different devices, on token, on fiat currency, play to earn, non-play to earn, and be able to accommodate all those as a platform.
Thank you. Who would like to add something?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes,
maybe.
Meg.
Yeah, I think in terms of gaming, there are different kinds of people. For some, quality would matter and money wouldn't matter. So for that fact, they would really maybe go AAA games. They don't care of. But for some who want to spend an earning, for example, for Axie Infinity, that's how it boomed. That people left their jobs to play because they
Yes.
could enjoy it and earn. That's a great opportunity and a great business model as well. But saying that just to go ahead that the whole industry will be dominated by this principle might not be true, because as how we are different and our purposes are different, for some the experience matters, for some the earnings matter, and it's great to be incentivized, as money, but maybe not just that. So maybe it's time to also look into what other factors can motivate people, the experiences, the relationships. When we talk about social networking, maybe money might not be. When you are talking about business relationship, what we are paying to be here in a conference, and it doesn't matter because the value is a lot intrinsic than just money.
Yeah, totally support that. Just because we already running out of time, the biggest misconception you have heard so far about Metaverse, and what is the truth?
I'll go on that one and kind of partially answer the other question first.
Just
So,
a few, yeah.
yeah, I have a book coming out right now from MIT Press on crypto economics. I don't know if it quite is true. So I invented crypto economics, but I was one of the very early people there. And you can optimize the incentives for whatever you want. In the case of our crypto economic system, which is one of the more interesting ones out there, it incentivizes people who create metaverses to create experiences that attract people, and where those people have fun, where they can measure the fun that they have, and then you get more eyeballs and other things like that. So there's no particular reason why you need to optimize exclusively, let's say, for the trader experience. You can just as well optimize the economics for the fun of the individuals that are playing, and I think that we're on the second wave where people are starting to do that.
Thank you, Wes.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest misconception is that the metaverse is some fanciful thing that's years away, when in reality, anyone who's been part of a sandbox game or an early online community has already been living in the metaverse. And your friend who is more focused on how their life looks on Instagram than in real life, they're living in the metaverse too. This is just people creating better and more immersive metaverses as time goes on.
Yes, Frank?
Mine's real quick. It's easy to create a bad metaverse. It's hard to create a good one.
Thank you. Megha?
The fact that some people have a very strong negative feeling about metaverse, that it's going to take over the world, on so they fear it. I personally feel that it's a blessing that it gives us global connectivity and an immersive experience. Nothing can change, the physical touch and the physical thing, but it's great to have something close to, good experience than just, a Zoom call or a Skype conference and so on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining our panel discussion. Let's take a quick picture.
Thanks so much.
Great panel. Well done. Step forward, I think, in front of the tables.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Joel, don't be shy.